Welcome to Amplifying Our Voices. I'm your host, Patty Hayak. I want to start off by thanking you for tuning in. I know there are so many other things that you could be doing, other podcasts that you could be tuning into, but you chose to tune into Amplifying Our Voices today, and for that, I thank you. My next guest is someone who I truly admire. Her name is Matha Vang. She is a consultant and entrepreneur. She has multiple businesses. In this episode, she talks about her cultural silence to finding her voice. You'll hear her share about imposter syndrome, authenticity, and transforming her career. With that, let's tune in. Hi, Matha. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited to learn a little bit more about your journey. I'd like to start off with, where does your story begin?
Sure. My story started years ago. Being the first generation Asian American, I think this is where we never really had someone to look up to know where to go, right? My parents often told me, be a doctor, be a lawyer. Those are those are where you will find success. But I didn't necessarily like touching people. I didn't have a voice back then. That's essentially where it really started was I don't know what I want. I don't know where I want to be. And then I decided I want to help people in a different way. So I went and got my degree in human resource, HR, helping people, find jobs, recruiting, finding their self-development training opportunities. That was a different way of helping people, not necessarily being a doctor or a lawyer. It really started when I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't see people that looked like me. I think that struggled the most for me when I started working in corporate America. I was pregnant, fresh out of college. I was balancing with my mom who had MS. She was in and out of the hospital. And then again, I didn't have anyone who had similar cultural values as me. I didn't have anyone that looked like me. I carried what I thought was being autistic, being me in the workplace to help me succeed. And that was the biggest struggle for me was how do I begin the story when I don't know how to begin or no one to look up to help me begin my journey. And so it was really soul searching, finding out, searching for that voice inside of me and learning how to speak out without, I guess, just speaking out of terms, without offending people, because that was a cultural thing was when you speak out, you can offend people.
You mentioned being the first generation in your family working in corporate America, and here, organizations tell you, bring your authentic self, and you didn't know who the real Martha was or how to show up at work. And so you talked a little bit about finding your voice. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How did you end up finding your voice? The Martha that we see today, she is advocating for herself. How were you able to find your voice when culturally you were raised to not have a voice, right? To be silent, don't challenge authority, keep your head down. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it really stemmed out from after years and years of working in the workforce and being told over and over, you're not ready for that promotion. You're not ready, no matter even if I was doing the job already. There were many times where someone took a different position, left the company. We needed someone to fill in and do that task. I inherited a lot of those responsibilities and just took it on, hoping that, hey, if I do it, if I work hard and I do the job, I show them that I can deliver it, I am worthy of the role. Many times I was told, yeah, you're great. You delivered it. You were fantastic. You showed up. You worked across the organization. You were very professional, yet you're not ready. That's when it really hit me hard was that my silence in some of those rooms and just waiting to be spoken to didn't really come through for me, even though I was being my authentic self or being the person that I thought I was raised to be wasn't really showing up for me. And that wasn't my voice. That wasn't truly me showing up in that space, even though I was delivering the work, I was doing it, getting it done, overachieving every task that was thrown at me. It really hit me hard that I still wasn't enough and I needed a change.
So you learned that by staying silent and just doing your work, doing what you're told, wasn't serving you. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of us can relate to that. Tell me about that moment that you knew, like, okay, it's time for me to start advocating for myself because nobody else was doing it for you.
Yeah. It's interesting how that happens because when you're constantly told that you're not enough, even though you're doing it and you're doing exactly what you're told, you can it's not it's not your family, so you can choose to walk away. And I realized that I was in this environment that I was no longer happy. It was no longer good for my mental health. And I needed a change. I needed leadership that stood by me and was willing to advocate for me. I needed a team that knew my worth and what I was putting into. And so I decided to leave. I left it all behind and started somewhere new, somewhere fresh. And sometimes I think that's okay, is to reset and find a new environment and let go of what didn't work out. Sometimes it's not you, sometimes it could be the people that you're working with. It's never going to work out if no matter how much you push, if they don't see your value that you put in. And so for me, I knew it wasn't me anymore. Uh, and I couldn't influence the situation anymore. And so it was time to make a change. And it wasn't just me that needed change, because I saw myself growing and I grew beyond what was going on in the workforce. I started to find my voice. I started advocating for myself. And the best way for me to advocate for myself is call out that this wasn't healthy for me, is knowing your limits. And I did what I needed to do. And I didn't want to burn any bridges. I did it respectfully, and just made a change for me.
You're mentioning something that I think a lot of people come to terms with at some point in their life where they're like, I can't control other people, so I need to take charge and change whatever I can control. And so you were in a situation where you weren't being valued. No one was advocating for you. Even though you liked the work and you did it well, it was time for you to move on. And that's okay sometimes. Sometimes that is what we
Right.
do. I know you've mentioned in the past how mentors have really impacted your life. Can you talk a little bit about what mentorship looks like for you and how that helped you?
And so actually mentoring was actually how I found my voice. She laid it on the table for me because I didn't realize that that was what was missing and my growth. And she was like, why can't you just raise your voice? And to me, it was such a cultural shock because I was so embedded this cultural value that I needed to be a certain way to be valued as a woman in the Hmong culture. You can't speak out. You have to wait to eat. You have to be a certain way for them to value as to even see you as a potential bride for their son. These are some of the things my parents have constantly pushed on me. And I can't do this. I can't look that way. Can't dress a certain way. I have to have long hair. Every little thing about my parents, my attitude was constantly pushed for me to behave a certain way. And so, sometimes I still carry some of these trauma that was put on me. But my mentor, it was amazing because she kept pushing on me. She's like, why? Why do you need to do that? You can choose to be bigger than what they have pushed you to be. They made you small. Now let's get big. Let's open up, and why not show who you are? Because I know you're smart. You're amazing. You get the work done. You know the work. You know what's going on. So speak it. Say it, Be authentic, but not culturally authentic, right? Be and show up as who you are, and in the way that you want to be, not the way your parents expect you to be. It was really hard to break that, and it took a while for me to accept that I was more than what my parents raised me to be, right? Or what they wanted me to be. Because I because the fact was I already said no to being a doctor and a lawyer, right? I already started to shed some of those quests that my parents had on me, and so it was I could do more than what I'd been told to do, and so yeah, I was very thankful for the mentor that volunteered to pick me up, and she really showed me a different light, and she's like, this is what she truly believed in me, and that's when she helped me realize that the environment that I was in wasn't just my only choice. We have a choice to either remove ourselves or keep putting up with what's going on being stuck in that situation or finding growth. It's really your mindset, and that's what she put on me was you can choose, you have the power to. You're not stuck to this one position. We can look elsewhere. There's so many more opportunities out there in the world. It's really the limit that you put in yourself. Are you willing to step out of that comfort zone? And so I was very thankful for that mentorship, and that's exactly where I want to start going, where I'm at today as a consultant, owning my own companies. I want to also inspire others to take on these risks and not just sit there thinking that this is all they have in life. There are more opportunities than what they see in front of them.
Yes, I love that because so while I'm not of the Hmong culture, I'm Mexican American, but we have a lot of similarities culturally where it's very family oriented. We don't challenge authority, right? Women especially are taught to shrink. And so
Right,
it, thank goodness for your mentor because it helped you unlearn all of those things that were so conditioned in us. So I love that you mentioned that, and also someone who understood you culturally. Okay, let's talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. We scan rooms. This is the first thing that you notice. Do other people look like me or sound like me? Tell me about overcoming imposter syndrome.
it's something that recently hit me hard because sometimes I don't remember that I am the 1% in the room that possibly looks different until someone mentions it. I often work in a room full of engineers, majority of men. All the teams I manage are all men. And people often, when they see me come in, they're like, hey, Matha, are you note taking today? I'm like, no, I'm here to manage the project. And so people will try to put that stereotype on you when they see you come in the room. And sometimes I feel it. Maybe I don't belong here. Why would they say that to me? One guy thought I lived in Asia, and he was like, what is your time zone there in China? I'm like, I'm not Chinese. I'm here in the US, right? So when people say things like that to you, sometimes I get slapped in the face like, do I belong here? Because a lot of these comments do hit me, and sometimes they affect you because you're like, why would this person ask me this, right? They're not asking anyone else in the room. They're only asking me. Why would they ask me in front of the whole entire room? There's like 30 people on this call, and they're calling me out,
Right.
right? And so it's like, is it because I'm the only woman on the call? Is it because I'm the only Asian on the call?
Hmm.
I'm not sure. And so there are moments where I reflect on, I don't know why, but it does bounce around your head. You're like, why would this person say this to me? And sometimes I don't feel like I measure up. Or do I belong in this room with all these men, all these engineers? But you know what? I'm actually really good at what I do. I deliver results. This is why they bring me in. I am brought in as a consultant to deliver the project and exit and then get it done. So many people have contacted me, referred me, asked me by name from other consulting firms. And I have recruiters coming out to me, offering me money or more money just so I can take on their projects. And so to me, it's like, even though there are these slight comments that are made while I'm in these projects, I have to remember that they see me more than my name or my color. They see the value that I bring onto the team. With having this imposter syndrome, there are moments where I do feel like, man, maybe I need to go back and get my doctorate degree. Maybe I'm not good enough to be here, or maybe I have to go get another certificate so I could belong in the room. But I don't. I don't need all this. I just have to remember I am good enough. Don't let these comments get to you. Again, it's a mindset thing. People are making assumptions. Could be rude, disrespectful comments, but people have their moments. He did apologize afterwards, after he said that. Sometimes people don't realize what they're saying until they say it.
Right.
And so I've had a lot of people apologize to me afterwards, after saying some things to me. And because I called them out, right? I used my voice. I was like, excuse me?
Thank you for sharing that. I do feel like we do have a responsibility to call people out when they're saying things that, maybe may not have necessarily thought about or thought it through.
Right.
I truly believe that we belong wherever we are. So these opportunities that came to you, you were invited a seat at the table for a reason. So when you have a seat at a table, it is your duty to speak up and use your voice. That is why you were invited there, and that is why you have these opportunities coming to you. So good for you, Martha. You wear many different hats, right? You're an entrepreneur, a consultant, a mother, a wife, so many things. How do you balance it all?
The secret is seasons. I have different seasons, and people think I do it all at once. I really don't. I have different phases where I go in. I see my life as a project plan, and I have phase where I go in. So in 2020, when we went through COVID, it was when the life shift for many, many folks all over the world. We went from being in person to this distant learning. And I started to explore a different route. That's when I started to explore, okay, if I can't go in person to go work, what are other things can I do? How do I bring in revenue? We have family, we have responsibility of home, mortgages, bills that we have to upkeep and pay for no matter what stage in life we are at. But we have bills to pay. And so it's like, how do I explore other avenue to bring in income? And so that's when I started to explore, okay, entrepreneurship. What can I do with that? How can I make money without being in person?
Mhm.
How do I navigate that? I started to study, with ChatGPT, with Google, there's Copilot. There's so many different tools out there available now that we can find answers. You don't have to attend a workshop to find out how to start a business. You could. I do it because I like to go network. I like to go talk to people and find out what worked for them and how they got started.
Mhm.
Um, to me, I think it's a beautiful thing when you connect with people and you learn from them in person. But then there's also tools that you can learn offline. And so for me, how I manage it all is I had different seasons. So during that season, I started exploring entrepreneurship. I started to master that, and that just stays afloat in the back. And so I have my online business, and then it just runs itself. There's so many tools to keep it going. You don't necessarily have to manage it manually anymore. As a mom, that's my number one priority at the end of the day. My boys, making sure they get what they need and supporting their journeys. Austin's snowboarding adventure, Aiden and his NASA um, and, and business lifestyle. He wants to learn how to build his own business and also work for NASA one day. These are things that we constantly explore. We talk about planning and how to get there. I think that's always the important piece of how to get there. So yeah, it's just every day looks a little different. I like to plan, but just make room for adjustment. We live in this agile world where things are constantly changing. And so it's just being able to adapt and go with it. And then at the same time, have fun. Don't stress if you can't get to that deadline. There's always tomorrow to get it done. Just keep that list. If you old fashioned like me, I still use post-it notes and a paper planner, and I just keep my to-do list going. And if I need to get it done first, I prioritize that first and get it out of the way, especially due dates or bills that needs to get done first. Let's prioritize those first. I'm not paying no late fees. So always priorities first. And then again, work in phases. You don't need to do everything at once. Learn this, master it, get it sustainable, move on to the next. Unless you're going to end that chapter, but decide to move on to the next. Don't try to do all at once because you will burn out. It will hurt. But think about it in phases.
That's great. Thank you, Martha.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about how do you define success now? So, not what your parents defined as success. What does Martha define success as?
At first, my success was like, oh, I'm making money, right? But not only making money, but being able to pay my bills on my own and not having to live paycheck to paycheck or not having to wait for others in order for me to be happy. There was this girl, she asked me, she's like, how I define success was that she 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 got to go out with her friends. She had the freedom to do whatever she wanted. And I was like, yeah, that's a great mindset of defining success, is that she can do whatever she wants, and not have to worry about anything. My success is just being able to pay all the bills and also being able to do whatever I wanted to do. Like just pick up and go snowboarding and also have the flexibility, the hours. As a consultant, I can choose to take time off. If I'm not on a contract, I'm not working, I have the freedom to choose not to work.
Uh-huh.
And to me, that's success. So I can go and spend time with my boys, take the summer off if I wanted to, go on long trips, go visit a different country. That's really my success. That's what I would define success as, being able to spend time with a family whenever I want to and have the freedom of choosing my own hours.
Oh, I love that. I love keeping up with you on social media. When I think about people living joyfully, I see you doing that. Right? To me, that's what success means. It's like just living a joyful life. And you make time for family time, you make time for yourself, you make time for time with your husband, the trips that you go on. And it's not necessarily the trips, it's also just snowboarding locally or
Yeah,
going on a bike ride or going
yeah,
on the lake, just
yeah.
really
It's
life.
it's these mini adventures. And maybe that's the right way to say it, is being able to create memories and adventures together.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you. So we talked a lot about career. What advice would you have for someone starting their career? What advice would you give them?
Um, you know, my biggest advice for someone who is just starting out, who's looking for a job. I had this recent conversation with my nephew because he's at the stage of his life where he wants to settle down. He's done trying to be a content creator. He's done, party, and he needs to get a job and he wants to get married and settle down. And so my advice to him was, you're not behind. You're actually, this is your right time. You got to experience what you wanted to experience, and now you're ready to step into either the corporate world or to be an entrepreneur, whatever journey you want to take on. When you're looking at jobs and stuff like that, don't just look at all the bullet points. You don't have to have all the bullet points, but it is how you define, how you measure up to get to that job. It's all in the wording. It's all in how ambitious you want to go. Just know that you are worthy. You do measure up. You don't have to always meet all the requirements, but there is a claw of how much to get in, because now everything is AI. Every application is all AI, and they're just polling based on AI. But just know that it's all about the relationship, the networking, going into these conversations with an open mind and be willing to learn. You don't always know it all. You don't always know what's right. The industry is always changing. AI is always advancing on how they're recruiting and how they're polling people now. So it goes a lot further when you have relationship with someone and you know what they want exactly and what they're looking for, because every job description is just a script.
Right. I love that. Thank you. What do you hope someone listening takes from your story?
Is that your silence isn't just your survival. Always go in with an open mind, but never think that it's always going to turn out the way they others and you think it's going to turn out. You are your biggest cheerleader, and then you're also your biggest doubt, because it's always our mindset that will stop us first before we go further. And so yeah, the biggest takeaway from my story is don't ever let yourself hold your back, and don't think that just because you aren't getting that promotion, you don't know how to find your voice, people don't value you. You're probably in this wrong situation, and it's okay to reinvent yourself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Martha. I really enjoyed learning a little bit about you. You have your whole future ahead of you, and I can't wait to see everything that you're going to accomplish. And thank you. Have a great day. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, follow, and share this with someone who might need it. Stay tuned for the next one.